If you're marrying for love, you're making the same mistake I did, and it cost me 20 years of quiet resentment. I thought the racing heart meant destiny. I thought the spark meant compatibility. It didn't. Heart racing is chemistry. Chemistry is not commitment. Spark is excitement. Excitement is not stability. And no one tells you this. Your brain is lying to you. Nature designed you to fall in love quickly, not to stay in love forever. It floods you with chemicals, blinds you just long enough to say yes. Then the fog lifts, and you're left with a human being. I learned what actually keeps a marriage alive when the spark dies, but I learned it too late. When I was 25, I thought I had found the meaning of life. She walked into a room, and everything inside me shifted. My heart didn't just beat faster, it pounded. My hands felt warmer, my thoughts scattered. I couldn't eat properly, I couldn't sleep deeply. Every sound of her voice felt amplified. If she didn't reply to a message, I felt a jolt of panic. If she smiled at me, I felt invincible. I mistook that anxiety for passion. I mistook that obsession for connection. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, this is it, this is destiny. And that's what everyone tells you, isn't it? If your heart races, it must be real. If you feel restless without them, it must be love. If you can't think clearly, it must be fate. But what I didn't understand at 25 was this. My brain was on drugs, not metaphorically, literally. When you fall in love, your brain floods with dopamine. Dopamine is the reward chemical. It tells you, this is important, chase this. Then there's oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It creates attachment, closeness, trust, and adrenaline, the same chemical that activates when you're in danger. That racing heart, that nervous energy, that feeling of urgency. It isn't proof of compatibility, it's stimulation. Nature's design is simple. Get two people attached quickly, bond them long enough to reproduce, then move on. Nature does not prioritize lifelong harmony, it prioritizes survival. No one told me that the in-love feeling has an expiration date. Scientists say it lasts somewhere between 18 months and 3 years. That's it. After that, the chemical intensity fades, the fog clears. And when it cleared for me, I panicked. We had been married 2 years. One morning at breakfast, I looked across the table and felt calm, too calm. The butterflies were gone. The mystery was gone. The urgency was gone. In its place was a real human being. She chewed too loudly. She had habits I hadn't noticed before. She was tired. I was tired. And for the first time I wondered, did I marry the wrong person? What I didn't realize then was that nothing had gone wrong. The chemicals had simply done what chemicals do. They faded. The high ended. And I had built my understanding of marriage on a temporary state of intoxication. That was the biological trap. You think the high is the foundation. It isn't. It's the bait. And if you don't understand that, you will spend years trying to recreate a feeling that was never meant to last. I did. And that chase nearly ruined everything. They don't tell you about the expiration date, 18 months, maybe 3 years if you're lucky. That's how long the chemical fog usually lasts. After that, the brain stabilizes. Dopamine drops, adrenaline quiets, oxytocin settles into something calmer, and when that happens, the illusion softens. I remember the morning it happened to me. Nothing dramatic, no betrayal, no shouting, no crisis. Just breakfast, sunlight through the kitchen window, 2 cups of coffee, silence. I looked at her, and for the first time I wasn't electrified. I was aware of her flaws, aware of her habits, aware of how different we actually were. She didn't change, my perception did. The high had blurred everything before, now the blur was gone. The spark faded, and in its place irritation quietly rose, the way she left drawers slightly open, the way she repeated stories, the way she questioned my decisions, small things, but when the adrenaline is gone, small things feel louder. That's the danger. You think the absence of fireworks means the presence of failure. I started asking myself questions I had never considered before. Did I rush this? Was this a mistake? Did I marry the wrong woman? That thought is poison, because once it enters your mind, you start scanning for proof. Every disagreement becomes evidence. Every annoyance becomes confirmation. Every silence becomes distance. And this is where many marriages fracture, not because of abuse, not because of betrayal, but because the chemistry expired, and neither person understood that expiration was natural. I see young couples today chasing that first-year feeling. They break up when it fades. They say, the spark died. They think love ended, but what actually ended was intoxication. There is a moment, somewhere around year 2 or 3, when every couple faces the same silent question, is this about divorce? I faced it. I didn't say it out loud, but it lived in my thoughts. I watched other women in restaurants. I compared. I wondered if I had settled. The truth is harder than that. I hadn't married the wrong woman. I had married a human being, and I had mistaken the temporary high for permanent compatibility. When the fog lifted, I expected magic. Instead, I found reality, bills, fatigue, differences in temperament, two flawed people learning how to share space. That is not cinematic, that is marriage. The expiration date is not the end. It is the beginning of something quieter. But if you don't understand what's happening inside your own brain, you will misinterpret calm as failure, and you will go searching for another spark, only to repeat the same cycle. I almost did, and that would have been the real mistake. What I see now, at 87, is not romance. It's addiction. Modern dating isn't about partnership, it's about dopamine. Swipe, match, message, anticipate. Every new person is a fresh chemical surge. Your brain lights up the same way it does with gambling. Uncertainty fuels excitement. Will they text back? Will they like you? Will this be the one? That unpredictability is intoxicating. And when the spark fades, as it always does, you assume the relationship failed. So you leave. Not because the person was wrong, because the high ended, and the mind, once used to stimulation, starts craving it again. I did the same thing inside my own marriage. I didn't leave physically, but mentally, I started chasing comparison, imagining other possibilities, wondering if someone else could bring back that original rush. I had confused intensity with compatibility. Intensity feels powerful. Compatibility feels calm. And calm can feel boring if you are addicted to fireworks. That's the trap. You believe marriage should feel like year 1 forever. It won't. It can't. If it did, you'd be exhausted. Passion is unstable by design. It spikes, it crashes, it demands novelty. But stability requires repetition, shared mornings, shared stress, shared responsibility. There's nothing glamorous about that, so when I hear young men say, I lost the spark, I hear something else. You lost the drug, and now you're looking for another supplier. You're not looking for a wife, you're looking for a high. That sounds harsh, but I'm not condemning you. I'm describing a pattern. The culture rewards excitement, not endurance. It celebrates the beginning, not the middle, but marriage lives in the middle. The addiction to the spark blinds you to something far more valuable, the person who can sit across from you in silence without tension. The person who does not excite your nervous system, but regulates it. Excitement is loud, compatibility is quiet, and most people don't know how to recognize quiet. So they keep chasing noise. I almost threw away a good marriage because I thought calm meant something was missing. It wasn't missing. It had matured, and maturity at first feels like loss until you understand what you've actually gained. There was a moment somewhere in year 3 when I had to ask myself a hard question. If love isn't enough, what is? Because the butterflies were gone. The urgency had settled, and what remained was not fireworks. It was structure. That's when I began to understand what actually holds a marriage together, not feelings, foundations. The first is conflict resolution, not romance, not attraction. Conflict, how do you fight? That's the real test. In our early years, we argued about money, about work, about time. At first, I wanted to win. She wanted to be heard. We could have destroyed each other with words. Instead, slowly, painfully, we learned how to sit in discomfort without attacking. That skill saved us more than love ever did, because love disappears during arguments, but character doesn't. The second foundation is shared values, not shared hobbies. You can both love music and still tear each other apart. The real question is deeper. What is money for? What is loyalty? What matters more, ambition or stability? If your values pull in opposite directions, the marriage becomes tension. We did not agree on everything, but we agreed on the core. Family mattered, commitment mattered, promises mattered. That alignment carried us when emotion couldn't. The third is respect. There were days I didn't feel loving. That's honesty. But I never allowed myself to humiliate her, and she never belittled me. Respect is what stops you from saying words you can't take back. Attraction fades. Respect anchors. And finally, endurance. Life is not romantic. It is illness, bills, exhaustion, loss. One winter our child was sick for weeks. No spark survives that. No poetry survives that. What survives is partnership. Who stands beside you when the night is long? Who holds the flashlight while you fix the tire in the rain? That's the foxhole. Marriage is not a highlight reel. It's a trench. And you want someone steady in that trench. Love is a feeling, but staying, especially when it's hard, is a decision. When the spark faded, what remained was not passion. It was these 4 things, and those 4 things kept us standing long after the chemistry ran out. No one marries thinking about hospital rooms. You marry thinking about vacations. You marry thinking about laughter, shared meals, long walks. You do not marry imagining fluorescent lights at 2 a.m. or waiting rooms that smell like antiseptic, or the silence that follows a doctor saying, "We'll see." But that is where marriage is tested, not at the altar, in the foxhole. There was a year when money nearly collapsed around us. Work slowed, bills did not. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with numbers spread out in front of me, feeling something close to failure. The spark didn't matter then. Romance didn't solve anything. What mattered was this: she didn't panic. She didn't accuse. She didn't say, "You should have." She said, "We'll adjust." That word, "we," is the foxhole. Later came sickness, long nights, interrupted sleep, fear that sat heavy in the room. When you're exhausted, you don't perform love. You survive together. There were nights we barely spoke, not because we were distant, because we were tired beyond language. She would sit beside the bed. I would hold the cup of water. We would switch without discussion. That's partnership. That's what remains when passion is irrelevant. Sleepless nights change you. Financial strain exposes you. Illness strips away performance. In those moments, you discover whether you married a thrill or an ally. I often ask young men this question now. Who holds the flashlight when you're in the dark? Not metaphorically, literally. When you're on the side of the road with a flat tire in the rain. When you lose a parent. When your body begins to fail. Who stands there steady? The person who once made your heart race, or the person who steadies your breathing? The foxhole is not glamorous. It is mud, stress, uncertainty. And when you're in it, you don't care about chemistry. You care about loyalty. You care about resilience. You care about someone who does not leave when it stops being fun. That is the test. And most people fail it, not because they are bad, but because they married the spark instead of the soldier. Passion is loud. It arrives with urgency, with heat, with drama. It makes you feel alive because it unsettles you, but it cannot sustain you, not for decades. What sustains you is quieter. After the spark fades, and it will, something else has the chance to grow. Not intensity, intimacy. There is a difference. Passion demands attention. Friendship builds trust. In our later years, the romance was not cinematic. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic declarations. There were Tuesday nights. She at one end of the couch with a crossword puzzle, me with a book I'd read 3 times before. No music, no tension, no performance, just quiet and complete ease. That ease is something you cannot fake. It doesn't spike your pulse. It steadies it. The Greeks had a word for this kind of love, philia, the love of deep friendship, not eros, which is desire. Philia is companionship, shared memory, shared humor, a language no one else understands. By the time we reached our 70s, we could sit in silence for hours without discomfort. That is not boredom. That is alignment. Passion excites your nervous system. Friendship regulates it. And when your body begins to age, when beauty softens, when energy slows, regulation matters more than excitement. You do not need someone who sets you on fire. You need someone who keeps you steady. The world tells you to chase fireworks, but fireworks are brief and loud. They burn brightly and disappear. Companionate love is a lantern. It does not dazzle. It endures. And in the later chapters of life, endurance is far more valuable than intensity. If you marry for passion alone, you are marrying a moment. If you marry for friendship, you are marrying a witness. Someone who saw you when you were young. Someone who sees you when you are old and still stays. That is the love that remains when everything else fades. In the end, it wasn't dramatic. No violins, no grand speeches, just a small hospital room, machines humming softly, curtains half drawn, the kind of light that makes everything feel temporary. She was tired, not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, the kind that settles into the bones. I sat beside her, holding her hand, that same hand that once made my heart race at 25. Now it was thinner, fragile, but still familiar. There were no conversations about passion, no memories of fireworks, no talk of the early days. There was only presence, hours of it, quiet, breathing, waiting. At one point she opened her eyes and looked at me, clear, steady. She squeezed my hand, not hard, just enough, and she said something I will never forget. Thank you for staying. That was it. Not thank you for loving me. Not thank you for the romance. Thank you for staying. In that moment I understood everything. Love is a feeling. It rises, it falls, it shifts. Staying is a choice. It is a decision you make on days when you are tired, on days when you are irritated, on days when the spark feels distant. Staying is not glamorous. It is not cinematic. It is steady. And in that hospital room with nothing left but breath and memory, I realized that the only thing that truly mattered was that we had stayed. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but we stayed, and in the end, that was enough. I'm not telling you to avoid love, I am telling you to understand it. Excitement is not wrong, chemistry is not evil, but neither of them are foundations, they are beginnings. Beginnings are easy, endurance is not. So listen carefully. Don't marry the person who excites you. Marry the one who brings you peace. Marry the one who steadies your breathing, the one who lowers your defenses instead of heightening your pulse, the one who can sit beside you in silence without needing to perform, because the years are longer than you think, and beauty fades faster than you expect. One day the house will be quiet, the arguments will be over, the bills will be paid, the children will be gone, and the chair across from you will be empty. When that day comes, the only thing that will matter is this: did you choose someone you could stay with, or someone who only set you on fire? Choose carefully.